All right. Hello, everyone. This is Quarkus Security for Spring developers. It's a session very practical, even though we have a very short time. There will be a lot of live coding because you can look up in documentation everything, and concepts are quite similar. If you will see what are differences, yes, we implement it a little bit differently, but capabilities are quite same. I mentioned just very few, but it's mostly about approach and not about capability. So if you go to Quarkus.io and search for some keyword like what you implement, that you will usually find it very quickly. And there is not much I could present you more about this. Some differences, when you go with Spring Security, you have this hierarchy of beans, and well, the most specific ones always win, and you can program basically everything programmatically. I suppose there are some exceptions, but for us in Quarkus, this is very config approach. So usually you will rely on small I config, that is, well, based, Quarkus is based on this, and you will use YAML or application properties to configure most of things. There are exceptions. We in Quarkus OIDC extension, we have programmatic builders, and you can do everything you can do in configuration on in text-based, strings-based configuration. You can configure it with these builders, but there are not much differences. We try to, well, let you start with as little as you need. So that's zero configuration. I will show you that I will create application. I've already created it right now. So you can see I've created application with OIDC and Quarkus REST. Quarkus REST is Jakarta REST implementation, and it's based on our Vertex server that Quarkus runs on. And if we go in, I will show you what does it look like, this application. So I've created Quarkus OIDC, Quarkus REST. I will add a few more things, but just because, no problem. Just because we will need them a little later. And I don't know how to add them with CLI, but all right. So test OIDC. So we have Maven application. We have these dependencies. We call these libraries extensions for many reasons. I have added two dependencies. This one I need because if I want to use better authentication and I need to get a token based on client credentials, then I need this client, and it's just easier with this dependency. And this one will allow us to do better things like when you have in Spring with mock user, and you mock everything. It's not real identity, you just annotate with unit tests. I will show you what I mean. So you saw that I just created this application, but I didn't write anything else. Like, this is code start for me, and well, I usually don't use IDE to run tests, but well, we can do it. I tried it and it worked always, but just I don't trust it as much. So what you can see that's happening, there is key code starting, even though we didn't apply any security constraint or something. That's that zero configuration I spoke about. It starts for you because there is Quarkus OIDC extension, and then when it starts. Usually it's 15 seconds for me. Then there is run this test I showed you. We have alternative that I will use for start because it will be easier. Oh, keycloak 1. So these dev services I'm referring to that I spoke about zero configuration, Point is that when you develop application, you have environment like, I don't know, test environment, dev environment, stage environment, and if you develop locally, it may be too cumbersome to use these environments. For example, if you have it behind VPN and so on. So you use local containers. Now I just use, for OpenID Connect, we provide either a key cloak that we start for you, and you can configure Realm and so on, or you have this lightweight OIDC server, which is, as you can see it here, we just start for you a Vertex server, and it knows basic operations that you need most of the time. If you want a real application, well, you need a key cloak probably on other OIDC provider. So right now I have already running OIDC server, but I am not really testing it. So I can put some security constraints to this generated authenticated. If you are Spring developer, you probably know this, because you can, on web security, you can enable JSF, and I think it's 250, and you can use this. This is not a good example. Rows allowed is what we call authenticated. It's just our authentic annotation, but it's the same thing. So you know these annotations that we use. We call it standard security annotations. It's permit all, deny all, rows allowed, and we also have one more I will show you. So now if I go, it should fail. I can also start dev mode. Well, that's the developer job I meant. All right. And when I spoke about with mock user, that I meant this is our alternative. Like, for example, we go with user Joe. All right, and we can make sure that it's actually here. So we could go with security context, and security context get name. All right, and expectations should be altered. So this is something you see. We call it differently, but it's the same thing. Hopefully it will pass. All right, cool. It's the same thing, but it's still mocking. So what I would like to do is usually to test not a black box application. Like this, what it does is that it mocks identity inside one JVM process, but I would like to test actual OIDC server, and well, let's go with this. That was, well, a rather longer introduction to zero configuration, and opinionated. There is no hard nose, but there are things that we don't do, like expression languages and so on. Some things like we have that are very close to expression languages, but we don't implement it. It's rather opinion than something you need to rely on. That, like it's never no go. If you go and implement it, like open source contributor, I think it will be welcomed. Maybe it will be separate extension or something like that. So we should. I started right with a Quarkus application. That's good because I will use it for showing you this pattern, but. Spring has two. So, well, Spring Security can work for either web flags or it can work for MVC. And you have different approaches. We don't have different approaches because Quarkus in core is reactive, and it's also possible for users to choose whether they write reactive code, they combine it, they write imperative paradigm. So there is difference. I will discuss Spring. It will only be about this servlet implementation. I suppose you can. Main difference is where you store this security context. So if they store security on security context holder on local thread, then you can't rely on this if it is reactive code, because it's not there. It's not blocking, right? So it might be there in these callbacks, like, but it won't be there always. So we have different approaches, but that's it. What I wanted to show you is that, yes, regarding reactive, maybe you have heard REST is reactive and so on. There is reactive, and users are always afraid that they need to use a reactive approach. But it's basically how Quarkus works. And for you, most of the time, it may not be a good idea at all, because, for example, if you compare Hibernate ORM or Hibernate reactive, it's usually it can be Hibernate ORM that is more effective for you. There is always some overhead, like you have these mutiny wrappers, and you have scheduler callbacks and so on. All right. That's the reason why I chose MVC, and then I wanted to show you, if you even remember this one, I wanted to show you Spring, this filter chain. So they have like Jakarta filters, and if they break it, like for example chain do filter, if they decide not to continue with this chain, then, well, you know, we have certainty that this won't continue this request. You can abort it. Well, it's very similar approach to what we have. If you see this, then you have these handlers. These handlers are dispatched on event loop, and you have always some routing context that is for one request have routing context. All right, routing context, and this handler is always dispatched on one local one thread, and you can rely that's one thread. That's and this local context, it has some local data. For example, it can be some your identity, it can be CDI request context, whatever. You can rely that this CDI request context will always be used only from one thread, so it's thread-safe approach. But if you look how it looks like, and it's quite important. Oops, all right. I will write it here. Usually you don't combine it, but we don't have much time. All right. So if I continue here, if I decide to continue, for example, I go with next, and it's next handler. If I decide to fail, it's too smart. I can decide to fail it, so it will go to failure chain handler, and I can also end it, so I will send response like it keeps offering me. And it's very similar to what you can do with filters. And you have no reason for here to block. You can go with go vertex and execute it something, or worker thread, which is a place where you can block. But you don't have reason to block, because you will call this next whenever you are done. So you can perform this async stuff, and then you are done. And why is it important? Everything in Quarkus that relies on HTTP server relies on this. So you can be sure that gRPC, WebSockets Next, Quarkus REST, they are implemented as these handlers. And security is also as these handlers. So it will run, I will show you a little bit. All right, I will go back to this. You will see this handle chain. So you have course, authentication, authorization, and then you have these other stacks. And it's you know that this is like this filter chain. They have filter for authentication. We have a filter for authentication, but there is there is separation. I will show you. All right. So if you define a filter chain, then you can it won't go there further. If you go, this is my path. This is permit all. And you say any other request will be authenticated. Quarkus doesn't allow to programmatically set up these handlers. You have configuration in application properties, so you would do something like this. Authenticate. I don't know what was there. I was login maybe, and login was permit. Everything else was public. All right, public. All right, and now so I think. All right. So this is basically what we would like to do when you write this text. Why I give this as parallel? Well, what happens in Quarkus is that when you have this authentication handler, then we perform authentication either proactively, like if there are credentials and you have it enabled, which is by default, we authenticate you. If not, we just go store this on routing context. So there is possible authentication, and that's callback, and then we perform authorization if there is such a request level authorizations rule like I wrote in configuration. And that triggers authentication, and then it happens based on these authorization rules. If you have proactive authentication and you have credentials, it performs authentication, and if there's credentials are wrong, usually it fails for you because well, that's how usually identity providers are implemented, but it's optional. All right. I wanted you to see these handlers so that you know what is going there, but what we see most often is that users just expect to be there as security objects. Like they expect that they do we are CDI-based approach, so they expect that they inject security identity, and they expect that it's always there. Whatever they define such a handler, they perform something very early, but it must comes from somewhere. So where it comes from is that it's stored on this routing context. There is user, and it's HTTP Quarkus HTTP user. All right. We need to cast it. There are some experimentation with other users, but it's not relevant for you. So you see that you have one request, incoming request, and you have one user. That's your representation that you will work with is security identity. So you have security identity, and usually what you see is that you go to CDI and you request from CDI being that is security identity, or you have a parent object that is security identity association, and you can request it from there. But where it comes from always is this routing context. It's well, when it is this HTTP, of course, requests, you can implement it big differently. And what I wanted to show you is that is different to this approach. This approach, what it does is to say, I will just, this is one process, so I will define security identity association, and I will just say, based on this information, I will say this is user ABCD. So I should be able to. Okay. Let's see. So if you see this project, test identity association, this should help you to understand what's happening there, because, well, I don't know if you know what happens with this Wivmock user or something like that, but it's just been that that was collected in test JUnit test callback, and it serves you this identity. And well, usually you would want to write a test that works with black box, like text endpoint OIDC. I'll go a bit quicker because we don't have much time. So, did we? OIDC test client, all right. So if I go and do same thing, it should fail because right now I have no security identity. But it fails, yes, because we have compilation, so we can just drop this. All right. Go ahead. So I suppose it failed, yes, 401. We can try it again. And again, I would like you to understand what is happening there. Well, it should pass ideally. Nope. So yes, but that's about response. So I expected Joe, but now it's Elise. All right. So what's happening there is that we have some OIDC test client, and it uses small array config to access information that was produced by dev service that from OIDC. So dev service basically says I created a Vertex server. Here are credentials. Here is client secret, and you can use it. I don't know if. So that's why you can create just plain object, and it's still there. You should close this one, by the way. But it's and so all right. Let's continue. That's a nice one. All right, authentication architecture. We don't have same objects, but we have same concepts. So when you call HTTP hello endpoint, then what happens is there is that authentication header I spoke about, and it calls identity manager. It's for you authentication manager. Identity manager calls identity providers. Identity providers takes credentials requests, and they decide this is I will create security identity. That's object I showed you before, or I will just return null, and nothing will happen. And let's try someone else, so I can have multiple authentication mechanisms. There is no security context holder because you can't rely. You need to propagate this identity through context. So we said that every HTTP request is in this loop. I will show this one. It's always, whenever this is activated, it's always same local data. So we keep their CDI request context. We can keep their routing context, and you can activate it. But you can't rely on static methods unless they are set up with this. They access this local data from Vertex duplicated context. That's why you would rely on CDI, and well, this requires CDI request context active. So well, Quarkus needs to set up it for you. I will not go to details. We also have application event publishers. We call it differently. We fire CDI events. We have one main. I will write you a little. How much time we have? All right, I will copy it. Never mind. I wrote one before. So we have a main interface that is a security event. It's in Quarkus Security extension, and there are other events like authentication success, authentication failure, authorization failure, authorization success. And we have other events that you can explore if you want to play with this. So if I will show you how these events looks like. It's all right. Whatever. I just want to add here breakpoint, but I will do it a little bit differently because I hope it waits. It waits, all right. So, is it big enough? Yes, it's big enough, right? So, if you look what we have there, we have authentication events, we have authorization success, and there is no failure. We should write one. All right. So, there is routing context that I spoke about. We usually attach there, and you have also there. You have the yes, that's security identity principle. All right, some information not very useful alone. We will write failure because usually if you have authorization failure and you want to perform, for example, some login or something like that, that you usually do it by catching these events. So we have two built-in users that I think are well known. One is Bob, it's user, other is Elise, that's also admin. And let's expect failure. Oh, it's just authentication. Sorry, let's add some constraints. At least you will see some. So not just authentication, but we will require admin. All right. This is what I'm just using is method level security. We go with standard security annotations that are from Jakarta, and we have one more that I will hope to show you. But if you go with pre-authorize, usually in Spring, then what would be most for you? Most familiar is 403, all right, my bad. What would be most familiar for you is permission checkers. It doesn't use expression language like pre-authorize, but you can do same things, but just in programmatic way because, well, as I mentioned, there is a lot of opinions on expression language. I just want to show this authorization failure because there should be exception. You can have stacks, trace, and so on there. All right. So I have a method that greeting resource hello. I have forbidden exception. I have what check was performed, like rows allow check. Right. I have identity, and I have this routing context that can help you with path and so on. That's just one more thing. Yes, question and answer. You can ask questions whatever you want. I want to type one more about permissions, but go ahead and ask if anyone have questions. All right. You know what? I will just show you the one I wrote before. All right. No, you don't need to have question. Good. So one annotation that we rely on heavily because that's what Spring users know is these permissions allowed, can read. I created this example that you can use also meta annotations. This annotation is repeatable. It allows you to express logical ands or ors. Like if you repeat it, I will not, just to be sure. If you repeat it, there is a logical and between it. If you do this, then any other is can write is or, and you can also go with. If you like to write it as one, then you will do inclusive, and that's turns it to and again. But it can do more things. One example I would like to give is that it can intercept any method arguments. For example, this is there's permissions allowed. I have here security context. If I have some method body or something, I can also specify it. Well, so let's go with security. Security context equals whatever. I don't know whether it fails or not, but I can do more. One thing is that in this question, I can here have method injector for this Jakarta REST resource method, and I have here routing context, and this permission checker can also. All right. This permission checker can also intercept it. So whatever is coming into these REST methods, it can comes to these checkers, and you can access it. It can be placed anywhere in CDI beans. You can inject stuff and use it from CDI, whatever you want. How it works? Do we have time? We have 3 minutes. No questions still? Oh, all right. How it works is that we have CDI interceptors, and the CDI interceptors can be used, wherever CDI supports it. So we can be on static methods, for example. You can have util methods annotated with rows allowed or permission checker, whatever permissions allowed, and so on. We don't want to perform this by default, because if you intercept, it when method is invoked, it's usually after serialization. So if you send body and you turn it into DTO, then there is more processing, because you run whatever, you turn JSON into some DTOs or POJO or whatever. So usually we have filters like in WebSockets Next. We have on HTTP upgrade, we perform these security checks for standard security annotations, like froze out, authenticated, and we also have always fallback on CDI interceptors. So if these checks for any reason, like people like to use it on interfaces and so on, if it fails to detect it, there is CDI interceptors that perform these security checks for these annotations. But we try to perform it. All right. There's one more thing. We have a little bit time. All right. I mentioned that pre-authorized can be used for this repeatedly on endpoints and so on. That's one difference I would point out, that permissions allowed can be used repeatedly. You can turn it into meta annotations. I also mentioned that you can have get mapping or some route mapping, and you can use it on interfaces, but it doesn't play well with Jakarta specification. You usually expect that these constraints need to be placed on actual implementation. So if you write Jakarta REST endpoints, then it's concrete method that is annotated with path, and that is actually invoked, where we expect this. There is some overlay. We support more. Out of time. Goodbye. All right. Thank you, everyone.